All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be updating some of my patterns and going to have an open discussion with you guys. This is going to be a talk about what I've learned from losing my house, and I wanted to just share this part, just knowledge, just for those who wanted to get a house, and what things you can expect to happen, and what happened when I purchased my house for the first time. So right now I'm basically going to be recopying some of my patterns because I decided that I'm going to have somebody, professionally recreate some of my designs. The jumpsuit that I recently posted, I got an order on it, but I think I want to put it out like several other pieces in it, and I really don't have the time to sew each and everything with the current state I am right now. So what I'm going to do is have someone professionally do it for me. So this is going to be exciting. So right now I'm just going to basically work on my pattern so I can have it prepared when I take it to the sample maker to go ahead and have them produce. So I'm basically letting things go because for a very long time when I started my journey, I always thought that, you got to put in the work and do it yourself, and then eventually once you get business coming in, then you'll hire out to have that happen. But for me, that didn't happen, and it's like I'm constantly being forced to do things that I think that I'm not ready for, but maybe it is the time, and I'm assuming that I'm not ready for it, and it is the time to be ready. So I'm just going to go ahead and head in that direction and have somebody else do this for me, and then adjust my pricing to accommodate that person who's going to be doing it for me. So if you didn't make the purchase, the price went up. I will link the item of the jumpsuit that I'm doing right now, and basically it's going to be ready to go as is. There's no more of the idea of it being handmade or homemade, because some people feel like for the price it should be like professionally made. So now it's going to be professionally made, and you can order it right away and get it like in 2-3 days, so place your order. I have a link right here for you to shop it. And if you were the ones who got it beforehand, kudos to you, because you're getting a brand new one professionally made. I mean, obviously it was going to be professionally made, but now it's up a notch. It's going to take my work up a notch. By me doing the patterns and taking it to the sample maker, it's going to cost me a lot less than me having the sample maker produce my patterns. So that way I can save some money there, and then still be able to get my items produced. Alright, so before I get into the details of what I've learned, let's talk about where I started. So you guys saw my video basically about me leaving my job while I have a mortgage. And yes, that's a huge responsibility, but and a huge risk, because realistically, people won't do that. People won't leave their jobs when they have huge bills like this, especially when you have children involved too. Thank God I don't have any kids, because that would be another reason as to me not quitting my job. But you know what? I'm not a person to sit here and take nonsense from people. I don't care who you are, how much money you got. No amount of money is going to make me lose my peace. So I'm going to have to find another way. And I am very resourceful. Just because you assume, making the assumptions that I don't have any money because I lost my house. There are circumstances that led to that, and that doesn't mean I didn't have any money, period. I mean, I could get by, clearly. I had to pay my bills at the end of the day, and the house still needed to be maintained, even though I was still struggling. So we're going to talk about, let's start in the beginning. So when we went, it was me and my mother. Okay. So I first got my job, and I had met this guy, and I was very inspired by his situation because he had everything set in place. And he had his house, I think he had his house, sorry. He had his house, he had a child, and a good paying job. So basically, he was basically trying to create a whole family. And when I met him, I was 20, and I think he was about 27 or something like that. So our mindset was in two different places. He was trying to build a family, and I was like, I just got into my whole career. I wanted to see what my career was about because I always dreamed of having my own. I'm a woman who basically wants something for herself. Who is Daniela at the end of the day? I don't want to be just a daughter, a mother, a wife, a caretaker, a friend. I need to know who I am as a person, and I felt like this was a place for me to figure that out, especially at 21 when you're trying to, 21, you're trying to figure out who you are. I don't want to get into a situation with somebody and become a wife to someone and not know who I am. So this was a moment for me to, do something for me, and me doing something for me was having my own, because for me, I did not want to be in a space where I depended on my man to take care of me if I needed something. I needed to have my own. Just in case, my man, something happens to him, who's going to be able to take care of the situation? Like, who's going to be able to handle all of that stuff when he can't do certain things? He's not built like a machine. He's human. Things happen, and I don't want to be bamboozled or shocked because I don't have anything. I was codepending on him. That's not my life. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to have something, and then when I found somebody the same level, or even if he's a little bit more higher or elevated than I was, at least I have something of my own so I can stand on my own 2 feet. Anything shall happen, I have something to support. Where my mindset was, I didn't really want it to be there, but I was like, oh, maybe I should keep an open mind to this. And this is where the red flag came up, because our values wasn't aligned. But I was like, oh, let me try to, see how this works and keep an open mind to the situation, even though I didn't like the fact that this is not what I wanted for myself. But anyway, I was inspired by his situation. He had everything together. He basically was setting himself up for that. And I was just starting off, and I wanted to set myself as a career girl. And when I get my toes wet and figure stuff out, then I can go in. I'm 21. It can happen at 25. It can happen at 28. It's not a problem. You know what I'm saying? And on top of that, you're different. You're a different person at every stage of your life. I wasn't the same at 23 when I was 21. So it's the same thing. It wasn't a big deal for me. We was dating for a short period of time. And then I felt like, oh man, you know what? I want to have my own. So I brought the idea to my mother because we was living in a small apartment. And that's where I grew up in. And it was me, my mother, and my brother. My father had left when I was like 18 in the house. So by the time I got to 20, I got myself a job or whatever, and I was helping my mom out to pay the rent and stuff. And I felt like I wanted to have my own space because my intent was like, well, I want to have my own space and have my own apartment. So whenever I bring my guy over, I have a place for him to come, or I can go to his house, but I don't want to only go to his house. I want to be able to come to mine. So basically the intentions wasn't fully right, but I wanted my own space. And especially if I'm helping with rent and I'm making money, why can I have my own place? It doesn't make sense. So I was researching, and then my mother was like, you know what? She never had owned anything in her life, and she worked so hard for so many years. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to save my money. And, she had savings already. And she's like, all right, we'll go to school. We just buy a house. So initially we was going to get a one family, but over researching, the best deal was to get a multi-family home because there's incentives. With one family, you don't really get incentives like that, but there's incentives for multi-family homes. So my thought process was, I was focused on building my business. Basically, the whole story of having having yourself live in your house, doing your business and in your home kitchen, and then you grew your business there. For me, I felt like my garage would have been my warehouse where I can store my stuff and then ship out whenever people buy from me. I just work out of my home. The online scene is starting to pick up at that time. It was like 2008. So I'm like, okay, well, I can figure this out and, whatever. And trying this as I go when I was working my full-time job. So we had looked at several, one families to see that this was the way to go. Maybe I can have a basement instead. And I said I didn't really want a basement. I felt like I wanted the whole apartment experience. And if I'm going to be paying this money, I want to feel at least comfortable and happy with the decision that I made. So we finally found this 2-family, and looking back at the situation, when we found it, my mother wasn't 100% happy with it or was thrilled about it. She saw it, she was like, okay. And I was kind of excited about it because I saw the potential that it could have become. So when they told us the price of the home, and they told us, how much we needed for down payment, we was like, okay. I had saved up about $10K and my mother had about like $22,000. So we was basically putting that money together, and it was like, if you was able to bring in more, it will be workable for you. But the realtor who showed us the house was like, this is not the one. You should not get this. This is not good for you. And in our mind, we was like, we've been searching for 2 years, and finally we find something that's decent. You're telling us like no, like what do you mean no? And then the whole mindset of don't take no for an answer, and this and that, whatever. But when I looked back at the first time we entered the home, the owner of the house was an old lady and her son. And when we walked in, the house was very dim, kind of grim. And my mother was like, she wasn't so thrilled about it, but she was okay. And like I said, I saw the potential that, if we put work into this, that we can raise the value of the home and still build equity in the home or whatever. But there was something about it that wasn't 100%. And we walked in the first upstairs and had 2 bedrooms. So it would be good for my mother and my brother. And then downstairs had a whole apartment that I showed you in the last video. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be perfect. It was like the small house, nothing too big. I don't want nothing big at all. I want something very small just for me. And that's that. And when we was looking at the owners, they looked so sad. They wasn't like inviting. They weren't like, oh my God, hello, how are you? It was nothing like that. It was just like, come inside, look around. Yeah, this is what it is. This is where this is at. It was nothing, like she looked miserable. The older woman, this old woman with her son, she looked miserable. Like looking back at it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, she was so miserable. So then we put an offer on the house, and the realtor was like, this is not a good offer. You're gonna run into trouble. And she didn't recommend us to move forward with this house. So we was like, okay, you know what? This realtor is really trying to block us. So we're going to go directly to the person who owns the house that basically has the listing, because she was going to share whatever they made within the house, because she was like a person who picked up the listing from the agency, the realtor. So whoever, like, outside realtors can also pick up the listing if they have it, and then they share whatever money they make on the house, just because they brought somebody to the business, if the real estate agency wasn't able to sell it. So we decided to go to the real estate agency that the house was listed from, and we spoke to the manager of the realtor. And he was like, okay, we'll, write up the papers and, figure everything out and, move forward. And we put our offer in, and then they accepted it. So now we decided to work with the real estate agency instead, and ditch the lady who told us no in the beginning. The situation now was basically finding a bank. And I was banking at HSBC, and we spoke to a woman that was doing the mortgages at HSBC, and they told us that, well, we can only approve you for this amount because of your income, and if you get something a little bit more, you won't be able to pay for it. So we were like, what do you mean we won't be able to pay for it? Because, you know, we have the money. Well, you know, you're supposed to make this amount and this and that. So they qualified us for this amount of money for the mortgage, and that money was only able to get us a home at one family, and we really wanted a two family because there was incentives and you can always rent it. So we decided to not use that bank and found another bank, and my mother ended up finding another bank, which was more like a bank. I felt like it was kind of shady. It was a kind of like a shady bank. So they approved us for the mortgage, and at the table, this is where the nonsense started to happen. And these were all signs that we saw in the beginning, like we was hit with, but we didn't really fully understand. As new home buyers, we were like, no, we really want this. We want this so bad, and we'll do anything we can to get it. And it was a bad sign for us to not go into that. And that's definitely a red flag as I look back, that I rushed into a situation where we was forcing it. So here we are at the table, and at the table is when you can make negotiations. If you feel like the price of the house is too high, when you went back into negotiate to think about it, you can negotiate it on the table. If the seller really wants to leave the house, they will do something to lower it down. Maybe during the inspection of the home, you found out there's something wrong that you're gonna have to pay. You can come on the table and say, this is what my inspector found. It's gonna cost this and that, the third. So we were looking for you to take off this and that, whatever. And a lot of renegotiation happened at the table. So this is where they're trying to play us. Now, we had a lawyer, and you think that our lawyer would be on our side, but instead we felt like the lawyer became on the seller side, our lawyer that we're paying. Because at the end of the day, they were more concerned about getting the deal done than our own reasons as to why we didn't feel like we wanted to pay the price. First off, we felt like we paid too much for the house. The house was very old and it needed a lot of updating. And we tried to work them down, but they refused to work us down. Our lawyer was like, no, this is a good deal, you should do it. Then they asked us, then we told them that we wanted a lower rate, and the rate was about 2, and they tried to get us to sign a 6% rate, and we was like, no, we wanted at a 2. They was like, well, you need to buy points. And they told us that the point was, every point that we wanted to buy down, like every half a point was $5,000. So we had to come out of $5,000 out of our pocket to pay for this. Either we take more on the loan in order for us to buy down the point, or we would basically pay up front in cash. And we was like, no, we're not going to do that. And our lawyer was like, oh, this is a good deal, you should definitely sign for it. And we're sitting here thinking to ourselves, like, what kind of lawyer is this? Because you hear that we're saying that, no, we want a 2. Can you do a 3? Oh, you know, we can't do a 3. It got to come out somewhere. Either you take more on the mortgage and stuff like that. So we was like, oh no, we're definitely not going to do this. And then they started to adjust how much commission they was going to make off of the loan, and said, okay, we'll take it off of the loan that way. So now we're sitting here fighting with our lawyer in the background to tell them, hey, we saw this, that, they need to take off this price, they need to do this. And they were really trying to get out of the house. But we didn't know that, how eager it was. But they would have done anything. Now looking back, they would have done anything to get themselves out of that house. So we end up closing. So now they was like, oh, don't worry about it, you're going to make the payments. And we're like, how are we going to make these payments for real? Because this is really high, the mortgage payment. So everything for our mortgage was everything was included. Our home insurance policy, we signed a 30-year fixed mortgage that had a private insurance on there for 5 years that we had to pay. So that was fixed in the mortgage. We had a 30-year fix, plus the home insurance policy was also in the mortgage. So everything was locked in, plus we're paying the taxes. So every year, the mortgage taxes, the property taxes go up. And so in my last video when I was saying, oh, the interest rate went up, that was not what I was meant to say. I was trying to say the property taxes was going up. We started to pay the mortgage within 2 years. And then all of a sudden it started to go up. The property taxes went up on the house. And we said, you know what? Let's call the bank to see if we can get a loan modification. This is not refinancing. It's them going back and saying, okay, we're going to look at your income and see if we can lower the interest rate on the mortgage so that way your rate payments could be less. On top of that, what we didn't know, or when I finally knew, was that we're paying most of the mortgage interest rate, principal interest rate, more than our own mortgage. Our mortgage payment was only getting like, I guess it was like $800, and they were receiving the rest on the principal, which is crazy. So now we decided to call the bank and see if we can get a modification just for them to adjust the rate. And every time we called, they was like, oh no, you're doing fine, you're great, and don't worry about it. But hold on one second, rewind that. So that was in 2008 when we bought the house. The market crashed. They were still doing bad deals then. And we got into a mortgage with this small mortgage company who then sold our mortgage to Countrywide, which went under, and Bank of America bought all those bad mortgages from Countrywide. So now we're banking with Bank of America now, and that's when we decided to go and ask Bank of America to help us modify the mortgage. So now, as we speaking to, you know, the people over there at the bank, they're like, oh no, you're fine. You know, you're paying on time. We only help people who are behind their mortgages by two to 3 months. So we're like, okay, you know, usually mortgage companies helps you if you're behind a month or so. They're not so, you know, adamant like the ones with renting. If you got a good landlord and your landlord is understanding, you can probably say, all right, my rent is coming a little late, you know, this and that, whatever. Mortgages a little bit more flexible, and they're not so, you know, get their money right now. They'll if you call in and work with them, they'll work with you. So we call in the bank, and we decided to call again and constantly call and say, you know, we want to modify. And they're like, no, you're good. Don't worry about it. And we're sitting here saying to ourselves, listen, we're about to get late. We're going to get late because we got the water bill to pay. We got heat to pay. Plus we got electricity and all that other stuff. Plus you got to maintain the home. So this is not going to be really good for us. Doing what we're doing, we finally got behind 1 month. So now we call the bank and we're like, okay, bank, you know, we basically want to do a loan modification. We're having a hard time right now. And then that's when, in 2011, I left my job. And what I wasn't thinking that I already had some money stashed away, but I needed more money. But my mother was working, so her income with my savings and me getting unemployment would have been enough for us to get through. And I would figure out another way. But sadly, that didn't happen, and she ended up losing her job. So now we're behind 1 month. And I don't want to blow into whatever I have saved because things happen within the house, and I need to have emergency money just in case. So we called the bank and said we want to modify the loan and see if we can pay something portion or a portion of the mortgage and stuff like that. They was like, okay, well, we're going to get you... I think we're going to get you, send us documents about your current income, and then we're going to go ahead and review it. So we was like, okay. We went ahead and they sent us this paper documents in the mail for us to fill out all our income information and then submit it. So we do all of this paperwork, photocopies, pay for them to send it out. And then now we basically following up with them to figure out, okay, what's going on. So we every time we call in to follow up, oh, they're still reviewing, but just follow up next week, we'll tell you. So I think it was like 3-4 months passed. with the same excuses every time we called and follow up. And then they was like, oh, you need to send more documents. You need to send more paperwork. So we like, okay, what happened to the first paperwork? Oh, something happened within the system. You know, we don't see it on here. They didn't finish. It was incomplete. It was always an excuse. So we're like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what is happening? So now my mother gets injured on the job. She get hit in her eye, which then led her to get eye surgery. So this is not, a hit on the job and just like, she got hit, on some small case. This is a huge case now. And she's not getting any unemployment. The company, her job claims that she was being misconduct. And the private insurance that she was paying on the job refused to pay her on top of that. And then when she went to disability to get disability, they told her that it was too much to pay out. So she would have to go and apply for supplement SSI or something like that. So we was like, wait a minute, but don't she have an insurance that she's been paying for on a job? Oh, you need to get hit off the job in order for you to be qualified for the insurance. It was just like, what? So we had that going on while we're trying to modify the mortgage, because this is the situation. And, the income was going to be adjusted based off of her being on disability. But that never happened. So now my mother has a pain in her eye. She's constantly going to doctors. I'm going with her. So where was I going to go and find a job to go ahead and cater and go help? Plus, I have a father who is elderly right now. Thank God, he's, bless his heart, he's 82 years old. At the time, he was probably 70 something. And he have heart problems with high blood pressure. So I'm going with him to the doctor as well, while I'm still trying to work on my business and still try to modify this mortgage. So here we are. We sitting here going to doctors. We sitting here calling the bank to see if we can modify our loan. And the bank is still telling us, oh, you need to send more documents. You need to send more paperwork. And we like, when is this ever going to end? They did this for 3 years straight. They sent it to a lot of other people in the bank, like another loan modificator officer. She didn't do anything really. Gave us the runaround, told us to send us more documents, told us to send us this and that. And they was like, oh, well, you need to be behind your mortgage, like be really behind. And he was like, you know what, this is 3 years ongoing and still nothing has done. And what we asked for was a loan modification just to low down the interest rate, but instead they was giving us a runaround. So we was like, you know what, they're playing games with us. They're really playing games. So we stopped paying the mortgage now, and this, you would think that this time would be the time where you can consume and save all your money. Well, that's not what happened. Okay, so first off, like I said, my apartment was for me to build my business. I was not here to become a landlord. Until I build my business, that's when I said, okay, I can walk away and then do the landlord. I'm not a person who's built to go do this, that. I got to do one thing at a time and take care of. Plus, I got health issues, a problem at this doctor, run into all kinds of doctors, put so much stress on me, I couldn't even think properly. Okay, and I'm going through all of this while keeping a smile on my face and giving information here on YouTube. And nobody knew of this the whole entire time. So now I'm sitting here struggling now. My unemployment, it's about a year now. My mother goes into, it was 6 months later. Before she had her eye surgery, she got into a car accident. Now you would think, can anything get worse? You get into eye injury on your job, and then 6 months later you get into a car accident. This was a travesty. So now my mother get into a car accident. She dislocated her arm. She pulled her ACL, so she had to go and get that surgery to adjust that. And the car that hit her didn't have full insurance on the car, so you can't sue the insurance company for X amount of dollars. You're going to sue for whatever the car was insured. So she got a little bit of money, and since we had debt, that money kind of went to the debt that we had here. And then after that, within that 6 months after that surgery, that's when she had to do the surgery for her eye. Mind you, she was not getting paid for that accident on her job the whole entire time. I was sitting here supporting her, doing what I needed to do. Sales was coming in, but not enough sales to cover the whole expenses of the home. Now the mortgage company decides to sell the mortgage off to a credit debt collector. Now here's where things get a little interesting. So now when they decide to sell the mortgage to a debt collector, they basically saying that they don't want this on their books anymore. The bank does not want a home, period. This is a waste of money for them. They don't need houses. They want money. That's all they want. So if a house is making them lose money, they'll get rid of it they get rid of the loan for nothing and get them off the books. So since they were doing this for 3 years, it was a waste of money. They're not making no money off of it. They're losing. But since we were maintaining the home, they don't have to worry about maintaining the home and stuff because we were already doing that. So the best thing for them to do was get rid of this mortgage. So that's what they did, and they got rid of it to a debt collector who plays off as a new mortgage company. And what a debt collector does is they buy it off of the bank for cheap. It could be $20,000, and we still have the loan because they can make the money back off the loan. So once we verify that this is our mortgage, they say, well, you owe it, so whatever. So we worked with this mortgage company. This mortgage company was so shady. They sent documents every 3-4 months. And we're like, where's the thing? Who do we speak to? You don't really know who exactly. The people were very, didn't have enough information. So we were like, okay, I'm not sending my money to anybody who can't give you a proper answer. So we was like, okay, well, you know what? Nobody's getting any payments. Nobody's getting any payments. There's nothing here. We asked for a modification. They need to modify before we send any payments because that's what we was asking for from the beginning. But nobody wants to help. So now they send these paper documents, send them out. We send them out, nothing. So all of a sudden when they realized they wasn't getting any payments from us, they sold the mortgage again to another private mortgage company to see. This guy tried to help. He spent over a year trying to get us to pay, never verify, and that was that. And then the lawyer who was on the mortgage from the get-go, from the very beginning, they also worked with the mortgage company whenever it got transferred. So if there was an issue arises, like you need to go to court or you need to talk this out in a conference room in the court, they will send those documents to us because they have to send it to us. So even if we didn't verify our loan, we still knew about it because the lawyer would reach out to us. So the lawyer reached out to us and sent us documents, and whenever they had a court date, we show up. If you don't show up, you don't care, basically. And they can have one hand up on you. And you don't want to give them that opportunity if you're fighting for your home. So we're fighting for our home. We're telling them that we wanted a mortgage modification. And they was like, oh no, we want you. What they wanted us to do was do a short sale or sign the deed over to the bank or sell the house or, whatever. Those basically what it was. It was short sale or sign the deed. And we was like, no, we want to get a loan modification. That we was basically fighting for our home. We was thinking, where am I going to go? And right now the situation is she has to go get surgery, and she has a court case with her own job that seemed to take forever. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out what I need to do. Like, I got to take care of both my parents. I'm running to doctors left and right. Like, I don't have the time to go and look for a job because I'm constantly working and moving around. I can't tell you how many hospitals I know. Inside of hospitals that I know that I've been to. It's been crazy. So I said, I'm still going to work on my YouTube channel. It's bringing a little bit of revenue here. I'm making sales there. I'm going to try to make this work and figure this out. So that's what I was doing the whole entire time. And then eventually the house goes into foreclosure. And then I was like, no, we didn't even get a chance to sell our home. We tried to get modification, and then this is what we get. So we decided to go to court and open a what was it, a show of clause as to why we should get the house to sell. And we had an opportunity to sell for 1 year, and it still didn't work out. The court was like, that's not enough money, and that was that. So we was like, you know what, I'm tired of fighting, and I let it go. We let it go, basically. This was a pain. I had to go through surgery, so that's why it bought me time, because I needed to go get surgery for my fibroids, to remove fibroids. And I think that was due to the stress of many years of trying to keep it all together. And then the poor eating. There were times where I didn't have enough money to eat. We were eating junk food because we're broke. Basically, the whole entire time, it was like a constant struggle to keep it all together. And the whole entire time, I'm sitting here trying to, share my knowledge to help someone else out while I'm sitting here, suffering in pain. And what I can say about this whole entire experience, that it smartened me. A lot of people wouldn't have never taken the chance of what I did, and I don't recommend it for nobody, because the outcomes could be different for people, but only you as yourself can know what you can handle. And I can believe that I went through all of that and able to handle it, and I'm still standing here even though I am in an Airbnb. I feel like this is towards the end of a long tunnel, a dark tunnel. I can't tell you how many times I felt like somebody was looking at me. People will pull up. Once you are listed, your house is listed on foreclosure, it's in the general public. So anybody can walk up into your house and, take pictures, come and visit, knock on your door saying they're trying to help you. Scammers. This is a huge time for scammers to make money off of you. Oh, you need to give up this much money up front and I can stop it or go away and all that. A lot of stuff. I kid you not, I had like cars parked in front of my house every time walking out, trying to hide my face. I don't want nobody to see me. People knock on my door. Bill collectors come and collect their money. I have to argue all the time. Going to court to see if I can get a payment plan to pay and all this stuff. And all that I went through shaped me for what was to come next. I thought about, having a business, just having a business, even having employees, how to handle situations where life happens to your employees. How do you handle that? Because you got to be more than just a boss. You have to be a therapist. You have to be a person to care and still run a business. So legal situations that happen within the business, how are you going to be able to handle it? Who do I hire? Because all of this that happened within the house, I learned the tricks in the trade. And at the end of the day, since the house foreclosed, they lost so much money in this house. They didn't make nothing. They basically gave up the house for little to none just to get themselves out. So we don't have any debt. I don't need to file bankruptcy, because I was thinking about filing bankruptcy if they think they was going to leave that huge amount of loan on me. And they basically sold the house for less. Somebody bought it, and that was that. We didn't have to owe anything. We basically done. Everything is clear. We walked scot-free, which was fine for me. I don't have to have any money within this house anymore. And I can start all over again. So that's basically the long story of it all. And what I've learned from this, the most important thing that I learned from this was never force something that is not for you. If the shoe does not fit, don't force it. Too many times I wanted it so bad, I wanted to make it work so bad. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this and try that. And I wasn't taking the time to stop and listen to what God wanted for me. And I now realize that it is time for me to let go and let Him direct me as to what I should be doing next. Because for so long, I believed in this notion where hustle. You make the whole thing work. You the one that's you the controller of your life, and you in this and you in that. And I'm like, if I really was the controller of my life, how come all the stuff that I did, all the stuff that I tried to do, I did not benefit from it? I will not do anything that my heart does not desire. because only God knows the desires of my heart, and he's telling me how to move now because I don't have anything else to do. I don't know what else to do, but he guides me because he knows my desires of my heart. So if my heart does not desire, I will not be doing that. I'm at the fabric store trying to select the ones that I like, and I'm gonna go drop it off at the sample room to have the pieces made. I'm in the rain now, running to the sample room to drop the fabrics.